Breastfeeding is the most unnatural, natural thing there is. The whole first month of parenthood was really tough for me because of breastfeeding, and I felt super hopeless and discouraged and lonely. Hey guys, it's Mallory here. Welcome back to my channel. I have talked about doing a breastfeeding series and it's finally happening. So for the first video in this series, I want to share my breastfeeding journey, experience, struggle. It has been very challenging, but I am here to share my experience, and it is in no way to give medical advice because I can't do that. And it's not to like shame or put any kind of judgment on what anyone else does. I think fed is best. I think mental health is important. So yeah, I just wanted to throw out that disclaimer, but I'm really excited to share my experience. I did write some notes down, that way I would stay on topic. So just to start our journey, Asher was born on his due date, so he wasn't preemie or anything like that. But when he was born, he had swallowed a lot of the fluid, I guess, as he was coming out. So when he was first born, they put him on me for 2 seconds and then had to take him away to the table to like poke and prod, essentially. I don't know what all they were doing. I know they did a deep suctioning, which I've heard can be really harmful for breastfeeding because it basically just is teaching the baby that they don't like to have things stuck down their throat or even in their mouth, which the nipple obviously needs to be put in their mouth. So it just started off really rocky. I did get to do skin to skin within golden hour and everything, and even attempt breastfeeding, but at that point he had already been away from me for probably at least like 20 minutes. And when we attempted breastfeeding, he had no interest in it. He wasn't showing any kind of normal cues like pecking around looking for the nipple or anything. And when he was on the nipple, like right next to it, he just was not really interested. So kind of what they said is, you know, he sucked down a lot of fluid, that's probably why, blah, 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 blah. Then they ended up telling me that he had low blood sugar, so they had to give him this little like sugar syringe thing and give him a bottle because they said it needed to go down with some milk. So at this point, I mean, I'm just worried about his health, his well-being. I hadn't done a lot of research about breastfeeding or the golden hour or anything like that ahead of time. I'd been told breastfeeding was hard by a couple friends, but my sister didn't have too hard of an experience, and I just figured I'd probably be okay. And I just didn't really think about it. But I definitely recommend doing your research, doing your homework if you are pregnant, especially with your first baby, to be able to advocate for yourself in the hospital, to be able to ask the right questions, to really know, okay, when the lactation consultant's here, I need them to help me latch, and this is what I need. Because we had a lactation consultant come in during the first day that we were there, and they didn't even help me get a latch. They gave me some tips, like as far as how to hold him, because the nurses had first had me holding him in a cradle pose, which is really for older babies. Like I now do a cradle pose after I already do cross cradle, and then I put my arm underneath. So it's definitely not the best technique for a newborn. So anyways, that lactation consultant came, wasn't very helpful, and I just didn't even know that I needed more help. My mom even mentioned, because she was in the hospital room with me, and she's like, I don't really think that lactation consultant was very good. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I guess she was fine, she was friendly. So yeah, definitely do your research and homework. The next day, a different lactation consultant came, and she recommended us doing the nipple shield. So throughout this whole time, it's only been like 2 days that he's alive, I have been told to start pumping because we had to give him the bottle because he had low blood sugar, and then he wasn't taking the nipple still. So I started pumping, and I was using donor milk. So pumping luckily like worked well. My milk supply was totally fine. I haven't had a milk supply problem. They also said at the hospital that there was no anatomy issue. So I didn't have like inverted, flattened, whatever nipples, and he didn't have, they didn't say that he had like a tongue tie or lip tie, and they didn't really mention anything else. They were kind of like, he's just not really interested, he's really tired, and it's because he had sucked down so much fluid and blah, blah, blah. So I just listened to them and started pumping, gave him bottles, and I was doing triple feeding at this point. So I was trying to get him to latch, and then once the nipple shield was introduced, I was getting him to eat from the nipple shield, which is just a little plastic thing that goes on your nipple and is kind of like helps them kind of like a bottle, but it's on your nipple, so you're still like breastfeeding. And so I would triple feed. I would feed him with that. I would pump, and I would give him a bottle. We had to give him a bottle to make sure he was getting enough. So once I got home though, it seemed like, okay, with the nipple shield, I don't need to triple feed, like he's getting enough. So didn't worry about it. Went to our pediatrician appointment. It was fine. Told them, you know, there had been some issues, but it was totally fine. At the next pediatrician appointment, so the 2-week appointment, he had lost weight. So he was born at 9 pounds 7 ounces, and he went down to 8 pounds 3 ounces. So he had lost a lot of weight. Babies do typically lose a little bit of weight in the first bit, but then by 2 weeks they're supposed to be up to their birth weight, and he had just lost and lost and lost weight. So it was really not good, and I could tell I was really unhappy. Like that week I could just tell he was getting kind of skinnier, it seemed like, and it didn't really seem like he was eating. Feedings took like an hour to an hour and a half. So I'm up in the middle of the night feeding him. And if you know about breastfeeding, when you have a newborn, you're supposed to feed them every 2 to 3 hours. So you start that clock as soon as they are up feeding. So they start feeding, and then it's from that start to the next start. It's not from when you're done with that feeding, if that makes sense. So it was just, I'd feed him for like an hour and a half, and then in 30 minutes to an hour, I'd have to feed him again because I had to feed him every 2 to 3 hours. So it was super rough on me. It was super rough on my husband. Like I was just not in a good place. The whole first month of parenthood was really tough for me because of breastfeeding. So it is very challenging. It is a struggle. And if you're in that boat right now, I can definitely feel for you. And I totally understand. I multiple times thought about just exclusively pumping. I never really thought about doing formula, mostly because when I was weighing all the options, it's like, well, I'd have to pay for formula, but if I pump, I have a great milk supply, it seems like, so I'll probably be fine. So I could just do that. Again, nothing wrong with formula or anyone's choices. It's just not something I really needed to do, felt like I needed to do, or wanted to pay for, honestly. But whenever I would think about switching to just exclusive pumping, I would really go back and forth and hesitate. I wasn't someone who went into it like, I have to breastfeed, I only want to breastfeed, I'm gonna do it for 18 months, like blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, I'll probably try to breastfeed for like a year, being naive, thinking it's a natural thing. But something that I heard is that breastfeeding is the most unnatural, natural thing there is. And I totally agree. It's like, isn't he just supposed to know what he's doing? Everything's supposed to be right for me, so why are there so many problems? So then we visited another hospital lactation consultant March 22nd. So he was born February 26th, around the 4-week mark, well, close to the month mark. We went back to the hospital, a hospital that's a little bit closer to us, but the same name and everything, if that makes sense, and saw a lactation consultant. And she was pretty helpful, but also I just felt like I was doing so much research. I was trying everything, and I really didn't know what was wrong. At that point, I was using the nipple shield. Plus, when we went, he was really tired and sleepy. So she was like, oh, he's not really eating anything. And she weighed him, and he had got some, but it was just rough. We did order a scale online so we could see how much he was eating. Since he had lost so much weight, we needed to make sure he was gaining at least 20 to 30 grams, so close to an ounce a day, to be able to catch back up. So we ordered the scale, but then I just became really obsessive over that. Like I would get so upset if he hadn't eaten an ounce, or I think he was supposed to eat like 2 to 3 ounces. So if he hadn't had 2 ounces in a feeding, I was really discouraged, especially because it was super painful the whole time. So that's what I haven't talked about yet. I used the nipple shield up until March 22nd. Once we got done with that lactation consultant, I was like, you know what? The nipple shield is just making feedings last over an hour. It is something I'm gonna have to wean eventually, and it's not even necessarily working because he's not gaining as much weight as he's supposed to. So I just decided to cold turkey get rid of the nipple shield. I need to check on the baby. He's okay. Sorry, I have my monitor right here, but I have the volume down really low, but he's happy. He's taking a little nap. Anyways, I decided to just get rid of the nipple shield and suffer through the pain and see what happens. So I, from that point, did not use the nipple shield at all. I was in a ton of pain. I had cracked and sore nipples, and I had some remedies to try to help with that. So I'll talk about that in one of my other videos in this series, but it was really tough and I was in so much pain. My mental health was like down the drain because I just felt like I was trying everything and it wasn't working, and I was obsessing over his scale and all these things. So it was really not good for me. I thought so many times about just exclusively pumping, and I think moms who exclusively pump are insane. Like, it's so much work because you have to feed the bottle, pump, clean all the pump parts, clean all the bottle parts, and just continue this cycle. And like, if you go out in public, you have to bring the pump, you have to bring the parts, you have to bring everything, rather than just putting your baby on your nipple. So that's honestly why, like, I chose to stick out breastfeeding and continue to try it, because I didn't want the inconvenience of cleaning bottles and all of that, which is crazy. But also, part of me would be like, okay, no, I'm just gonna do the bottles. This is ridiculous. I'm not gonna suffer through this pain just for the convenience of breastfeeding, because it's never even gonna be convenient. I was just losing hope. And I felt super hopeless and discouraged and lonely and just so many feelings. Like, whenever I wasn't feeding him, which was still really long feedings, I was on my phone researching a ton of stuff. So it was just rough all around. So while this is all going on, where I decided to get rid of the nipple shield and everything, I didn't mention that the pediatrician had us coming in for weekly weigh-ins. Actually, after the first weigh-in where he had lost a lot of weight, we went after just a few days to make sure he was eating enough and gaining. So we'd started doing the triple feeding then, where I used the nipple shield to try to feed him. Then I gave him a bottle to top up the feed, make sure he was getting enough and gaining weight, and then I pumped. So that was like the most difficult experience of just trying to do all these different things. It took so much time. It took all of my energy. It took everything in me, and it was very difficult. But after we did a few weight check-ins, we decided, okay, we don't need to do the bottle anymore, as long as with the scale he is getting enough to eat. And so, like I said, I became super obsessive over that. And then my pediatrician was luckily super great. We just love her. I just found her like through our insurance, and I'm so blessed and so happy that she has been very helpful. But we decided with her at a certain point, okay, we don't need to stress every time, like it's gonna fluctuate. Breastfeeding isn't a science, like he's gonna get different amounts every time. So as long as he's gaining, it's okay. So luckily that had all kind of been figured out, but then I was still in a ton of pain. And so at least he was gaining. I was happy with that, but I was still trying to figure out what I was gonna do, because these excruciating, painful 30-minute long feedings just were not working for me. So I did reach out to another lactation consultant. Luckily, one of my friends had recommended her even before I gave birth. Boy, do I wish I would have listened. But my friend did add me to a Facebook group with this lactation consultant, which is so amazing. I definitely recommend joining some kind of mom support group, lactation consult group, just having some kind of community, or even reading online like other people's experiences, because not that you want other people to be in pain or struggling, but when you know you're not the only one, and it feels just like, okay, this is a struggle, I'm not the only one, I'm not crazy, this is normal, or this is, you know, really difficult for a lot of people, that just makes you feel better. And it's really important to have that and be able to relate with other people. Something that gave me a lot of hope was that a lot of the people said it took them like 3 months for breastfeeding to get better. So I decided, you know, I'm gonna stick it out. I don't want to pump and bottle feed, because when he bottle fed, he just seemed more upset afterwards, versus with nursing, he'd like fall asleep and be really happy. So I was like, I'm just gonna stick it out. I'm gonna do everything in my power to try to make this work. And if it doesn't by month 3, then I'm not gonna do it anymore. I'll exclusively pump, or maybe give some formula too. So that's what I decided, and it just depends on your goals and what you want, but I'm just sharing my experience, and my goal was have a happy baby and to not have to like clean parts and do all of that work. If I didn't have to, I was going to try to stick it out and see if I could make this work. So another thing that happened when I went to the hospital lactation consultant March 22nd is that she said that he had an upper lip tie. But you definitely want to do your own research. I was a part of this Facebook group with the lactation consultant, and she was very against lip tie and tongue tie corrections because they're being overly diagnosed right now. So if there's any kind of issue with breastfeeding, it's like, oh, they probably have a tongue tie, they probably have a lip tie, whatever. But Asher definitely didn't have a tongue tie, and the lip tie thing is something that they say, oh, it'll cause like dental issues down the line and blah, blah, blah. But really it's supposed to be something that I guess typically kind of gets injured or cut like as toddlers are growing up. I don't really know. Do your own research, but I decided that's not something I wanted to do. I didn't want to do a correction because of the advice that I got from this lactation consultant, who I am very, very grateful for. So then I had texted her. So I was a part of this Facebook group. I was getting that kind of support, just being able to read other people's experience. I would post in there a couple times like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, or hey, we were told he might have an upper lip tie, and getting some feedback. But then I decided to actually reach out to her March 30th, and I texted her. I was like, hey, this is what's going on, it's really horrible, blah blah blah. She was very helpful. She got on the phone with me. She didn't even charge me for any of this, and she got on the phone with me and told me that everything I was experiencing made perfect sense based on my birth story and what happened with him getting like the deep suctioning and not having that skin to skin breastfeeding right away and all of those things. So she really like confirmed that it made sense, and there were things that I could do to make it better. What she mostly recommended is trying to get him back to his natural instincts. So lots and lots of skin to skin time, and we even tried like nursing in the tub together. So I'd be in the water, he'd be in the water, and then I'd nurse there to try to just get him back to, it's almost like, I guess, being in the womb and coming out or something like that. So I tried that a few times. I tried spoon feeding, which if you haven't heard of that, I will link some of her videos down below. She's very, very helpful. And then I'll link a couple other things, like something else I had learned was about his tongue just not working properly, and that's probably why it was painful, is that his tongue wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So spoon feeding can help with that, and also like suck training. So you like put your finger on their tongue and they need to wrap their tongue around your finger, and then you kind of try to like pull it out. So I'll link these videos. They were all very helpful for me. But I did decide on April 14th, I paid for something called craniosacral therapy. So I had I had just read someone in my town's blog about this, like her breastfeeding experience, and she recommended this. So I paid to have someone come to our home and do this like massage kind of therapy. So lots of people say that it's good to do chiropractic work. We didn't end up doing that at all, but I could tell he had like a tight jaw. So I just wondered if this massage therapy could work, or if the chiropractic work would be the best thing to do. So I was like, I'm just gonna try anything. So I tried this therapy, and she was very sweet, very helpful. I do think like some of what she did might have been helpful, but it was also something like, you're gonna have to just continue to do this. So I asked my lactation consultant about it, and she said, if you can afford it, that's great, but it's not necessarily going to like fix things for you. So I decided just to do that one, that one session, but the therapist was the one who recommended like the suck training. She sent me lots of resources. She was very sweet. So very grateful for her as well. Then a little bit later, I was texting with my lactation consultant, and she told me that, well, I sent her like some videos of Asher feeding, and she said that some of those things were signs that maybe he had already emptied the breast. So he was like really making noises and starting to kind of pull, and that would be painful because I had very painful nipples at this point still. And so she said, you know, I could take him off, so use my finger. They say like to put it in the side of their cheek, the side of their lips, so that it like breaks the suction, but she said make sure you also put your finger all the way through the gums. So I did that, and then I would take him off and then put him on the other side. So he ended up being able to empty a breast within like 4 to 8 minutes. So sometimes it's like 5 to 10 minutes that he's on each side, but that was so much more manageable for me. And this is, you know, again, he's probably like 5 or 6 weeks at this point, so you can't really start taking your baby off the breast when they're younger. They do take longer to feed, but at this point I could start taking him off, and then I would just switch back and forth. If I felt like he needed more, I would do more than just the 2. I would go back to the first, if that makes sense. So that point really was a game changer. We'd been trying all these different things. Things had been getting, you know, not so much better really. But all of a sudden it was like, okay, if I only have to feed him on one side for 5 to 10 minutes, because that's usually when he started to show those signs that he'd empty the breast, then that was way more manageable. So that really helped me, and I would just take him off, and I was starting to feel way better mentally about that. It wasn't taking as long, so I was able to have breaks in between. I was able to work on healing my nipples with the different home remedies and things, plus the nipple creams. So I would do all of those things, and about April 18th, I started to feel like things were getting a lot better and more manageable. That was, I think, when I started doing that with pulling him off a little bit. And by April 23rd, I breastfed at my friend's house. So that was the first time outside of like the doctor's office, which was just, I fed him because he was like screaming. This was the first time that I was completely comfortable just feeding him out in public at my friend's house. So I had just been able to manage the pain. Things got extremely better, like so much better. I was not in pain anymore. There'd be some initial pain with latch, but I think that's pretty normal. And it's just been getting better and better since then. So it's been changing very rapidly. Like the switch just happened so quick. I think he's just got older and has been able to figure out what he needs to do, and I've just learned more and more how to help him in that. So like being patient and all these things. So this is just the first video of many I'm going to do about breastfeeding. I have tips I want to share. I want to share like must-haves, different products that have really helped me, stuff about, oh, he's crying, I've got to go, stuff about milk supply. Okay, he went back down. He's totally fine. But anyways, I just want to end this video letting you know that I am at the point where Asher is 9.5 weeks old, and we are breastfeeding totally normal. My nipples are not in pain. I don't even use nipple cream anymore. Things have been so much better. This last weekend we went to the aquarium, and if you saw that vlog, I actually breastfed him at 2 different restaurants, just using the cover. So things are so much better. There is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I was able to see so much progress and be in a much better place at this point. And I've heard a lot of people hit that point around 3 months, maybe a little bit later. So this is just to encourage anyone who is going through this struggle and really wants to breastfeed and really wants to stick it out, or if you're kind of wish-washy like I was, and you just need to know, like, do some people see progress? Does it change? Do things get better with time? And I'm here to say yes, things do get better with time, and if you put in the effort and energy. So I'm gonna have a whole series. Like I said, this is just the first of many. I've learned so much about breastfeeding, and now this is a really important topic to me because it is a struggle. It's so hard, and it's supposed to be a natural thing. It is a beautiful thing to do with your baby, and I just want to help in any way I can. So if you have any questions, comments, whatever, let me know, and I will, like I said, link some videos that I found helpful in the description box. Definitely make sure to subscribe because I am going to be doing lots of videos like this, and also just sharing other motherhood things. And I'm a first-time mom figuring this out like you. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say. It's a pretty long video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.